On the morning of December 18, 2016. At exactly 9:25 a.m., a dispatcher with the local emergency communications center received a call from a sprawling estate known as Kenrose Mill, located in the quiet village of Kinver. On the line was 38-year-old homeowner John Broadhurst. His voice was controlled but strained as he told the operator that his partner, 26-year-old Natalie Connelly, was not breathing. When asked about her condition, he replied flatly, "She's completely cold." 10 minutes later, paramedics pulled up to the 5-bedroom residence in the upscale neighborhood. Inside the grand foyer, Broadhurst was waiting. He directed them toward the base of a staircase where Natalie lay motionless on the floor. She was still wearing the black dress she had been seen in the night before. The paramedics did not begin resuscitation efforts. A brief visual assessment told them what they needed to know. Her pupils did not respond to light. There was no pulse. Her joints were fixed in rigor mortis. And her body temperature was significantly below room temperature. According to standard medical protocol, these signs indicated that she had passed away several hours before the call was placed. Bruising was visible on Natalie's face and hands. There were traces of blood around her head. Broadhurst told first responders that she had fallen down the stairs sometime during the night. He claimed he had been unable to lift her or carry her upstairs, so he left her where she had fallen and went to sleep in his bedroom. When Staffordshire police officers arrived, they secured the first floor of the property. In the living room and kitchen, they found empty liquor bottles and traces of a white powdery substance consistent with prohibited substances. Detectives quickly noticed stains on the carpet and along the lower steps of the staircase. Against the light-colored fibers were visible smears, patterns suggesting that someone had attempted to wipe away blood before the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. Officers sealed the front doors and called in forensic specialists. From that moment on, the Kenrose Mill estate was no longer a private residence. It was officially the scene of a crime. Several hours after Natalie Connelly's body was discovered, she was transported to the medical examiner's office for a full forensic autopsy. The pathologist's task was clear: determine whether the injuries on her body were consistent with John Broadhurst's account of an accidental fall down the stairs. The findings would dismantle that explanation entirely. Examiners documented more than 40 separate injuries on Natalie's body. Most were blunt force trauma, deep bruises, abrasions, and lacerations. The most severe damage was concentrated on her face and head. According to the medical report, she had suffered what was described as a blowout fracture of the eye socket, an injury typically caused by an extreme application of force, such as a direct punch or impact with a heavy object. Bruising extended beyond her face to her chest, shoulders, and limbs. In several areas, pathologists observed marks consistent with gripping and compression, indicating a physical struggle before her death. The internal examination revealed an even more disturbing picture. Natalie had experienced significant internal bleeding within her abdominal Cavity. The hemorrhaging was caused by ruptures to internal organs, the result of multiple powerful blows. Forensic experts concluded that these injuries could not have occurred simultaneously in a single fall. Instead, the pattern and distribution pointed to prolonged and repeated physical force, a sustained episode of aggression rather than one tragic misstep on a staircase. The chief medical examiner's most critical conclusion centered on the timing and mechanism of Natalie's death. Specialists determined that she did not pass away instantly. The catastrophic internal bleeding drained her body of life gradually over the course of several hours. Individually, some of the injuries might not have been fatal, but taken together and without any medical assistance, the outcome became inevitable. The physical condition of her body confirmed one chilling reality. Natalie Connelly was dying for a prolonged period of time under circumstances that bore no resemblance to a simple household accident. While forensic specialists documented her physical injuries, a toxicology lab analyzed samples of her blood. The results added another layer to the case, shedding light on her vulnerable condition. That night, Natalie's blood alcohol concentration measured 0.31%. Nearly 4 times the legal driving limit in the United Kingdom and well over 3 times the 0.08% limit recognized across most of the United States. In addition, toxicology confirmed the presence of cocaine, classified as a prohibited substance. At that level of intoxication, experts explained Natalie would have had severely impaired coordination, slowed reflexes, and diminished awareness. According to the official findings, at the time she sustained her injuries, she would not have been capable of effectively defending herself or fully understanding the severity of her condition. The combination of alcohol and prohibited substances acted as a powerful depressant on her central nervous system, accelerating her physical decline against the backdrop of massive internal bleeding. Investigators then compared these findings with John Broadhurst's actions. One detail immediately raised concern: the significant gap between the estimated time Natalie stopped breathing and the 9:25 a.m. call he placed to the rescue service. Forensic entomology analysis along with core body temperature measurements indicated that Natalie had stopped breathing approximately 5 to 6 hours before Broadhurst ever picked up the phone. During that entire period, he remained inside the house. When investigators examined the staircase hall, they used luminol, a chemical agent that reveals traces of blood invisible to the naked eye. On the pale carpet fibers and wooden steps, they detected smeared patterns consistent with attempted cleaning. Someone had tried to scrub the surfaces with household chemicals before paramedics crossed the threshold. Detectives documented that Broadhurst not only waited several hours before calling for help, but also spent part of that time attempting to eliminate evidence. Case files included a recording of his call with the emergency operator, during which he explicitly refused to perform CPR. When instructed to do so, he argued that her body was already too cold. For investigators, that refusal became a Pivotal detail. Evidence suggesting that Broadhurst understood Natalie's condition long before he contacted the rescue service, yet chose not to intervene as her life slowly slipped away. To understand how a 26-year-old woman from a modest background found herself at the center of events inside Kenrose Mill, you have to rewind and look at the path that brought her there. Natalie Connelly grew up in a working-class neighborhood, raised in a close-knit family where loyalty meant everything. The most important person in her early life was her twin sister. Friends described Natalie as driven and ambitious, someone who believed she was meant for more than the circumstances she was born into. Before moving to Kenrose, Natalie's world revolved around her young daughter. She worked as a secretary at a local school, balancing long hours with motherhood. Most of her free time was spent caring for her daughter and building a stable routine. Financially, life was steady but modest. According to her sister, Natalie wasn't just looking for romance in relationships. She was searching for security. She wanted to give her daughter a future free from financial strain. Her job at the school provided structure and responsibility, but it didn't offer the lifestyle she had begun to envision for herself in recent years. By 2016, Natalie was at a crossroads. Her social media from that time showed smiling photos with her daughter and snapshots of everyday life, birthday celebrations, quiet evenings at home. Simple moments that painted a picture of normally. Co-workers remembered her as dependable and professional, someone who showed up on time and avoided habits that could interfere with her responsibilities. But beneath that calm exterior was a growing desire for dramatic change. Natalie believed that meeting the right partner could elevate her life, that love, combined with stability, could help her step beyond the limitations of her upbringing. When she met a wealthy property developer from a very different world, it felt like that opportunity had arrived. The contrast between their lifestyles was stark. He represented comfort, influence, and financial freedom. Everything she had been striving toward. Natalie made a swift and life-altering decision. She left her job, said goodbye to familiar surroundings, and moved her belongings into a rented estate. Her family saw the risks immediately. They worried about how quickly everything was unfolding. But Natalie insisted she had finally found someone capable of taking responsibility for her future and for her daughter's future as well. What she could not have known was that behind the polished image and outward success of her new partner were traits that would eventually turn life inside Kenrose Mill into something far darker than she had ever imagined. John Broadhurst was in many ways the complete opposite of Natalie. By the age of 38, he had become one of the most successful property developers in the region, with a net worth exceeding 15 million British pounds, the equivalent of well over $18 million US. His life was defined by the kinds of luxuries Natalie had only ever seen in glossy magazines, a fleet of high-end vehicles, including a Range Rover and a Bentley, accounts at prestigious financial institutions, and real estate holdings in some of the most desirable areas of Staffordshire. In business, circles, Broadhurst had a reputation as a tough, self-assured operator, a man who wasn't used to hearing the word no. But behind the polished image of a high-powered entrepreneur was a personal history that raised red flags for investigators. Shortly before meeting Natalie, Broadhurst had been in a long-term relationship and was engaged to be married. He ended that relationship while his fiancée was 8 months pregnant with their second son. For detectives, that detail became an important indicator of his character. A willingness to abruptly sever commitments and a striking indifference toward those who depended on him. In the affluent village of Kenrose, Broadhurst was known as someone who enjoyed loud parties and extravagant entertainment. Money was rarely an obstacle, and the gatherings he hosted often pushed beyond conventional boundaries. His lifestyle revolved around control. Broadhurst was accustomed to dominating every environment he entered, from high-stakes property deals to his personal relationships. Friends described him as someone prone to reckless behavior under the influence of alcohol. With a fortune in the tens of millions, he carried himself with a sense of invulnerability. Problems, in his view, could always be handled with money or influence. Inside the rented estate of Kenrose Mill, John created a world where his rules were absolute. By the time he met Natalie at the Wagon and Horses pub, he was living as a bachelor, seemingly unburdened by moral restraint. He was searching for a partner who could match his rhythm, a life filled with endless celebrations and heavy drinking. Natalie, with her ambition and desire for a more glamorous life, fit seamlessly into that role. Broadhurst surrounded her with luxury. But along with it, he introduced her to an environment where aggression and dangerous experimentation were woven into everyday life. His wealth became a tool, one that gradually isolated Natalie from her previous world, laying the groundwork for the events that would unfold in December 2016. To truly understand what happened at Kenrose Mill, you have to go back to the summer of 2016. That was when Natalie Connelly and John Broadhurst first crossed paths at the Wagon and Horses pub. The relationship escalated quickly. Within a short period of time, Natalie left her position at the school and moved out of her home, relocating to the estate Broadhurst had rented in Kenrose. For a woman accustomed to modest means, the shift was dramatic. Broadhurst assumed full financial responsibility for her, reinforcing his status as a millionaire through constant displays of material wealth. Natalie suddenly found herself behind the wheel of a brand new BMW with unlimited access to the financial resources of a multimillionaire developer. The couple made plans for luxury getaways and even discussed spending Christmas in Dubai. From the outside, life at Kenrose Mill looked like a classic story of upward mobility, a dramatic rise from modest beginnings into elite society. Designer clothes, upscale restaurants, exclusive venues. It all painted the picture of success. But behind the polished exterior, a different lifestyle was taking shape. Inside the estate, long, drawn-out parties became the norm. Nights blurred into early mornings, fueled by heavy drinking and the use of cocaine, classified as a prohibited substance. Within just a few months of moving in, Natalie's family began noticing changes in her appearance. Bruises and abrasions would appear on her body from time to time. According to statements later given by relatives, Natalie always had an explanation. She insisted the marks were the result of private activities between her and Broadhurst, activities she claimed were consensual. She maintained that she had found someone who made her feel secure, despite the visible signs left behind by their relationship. Experts would later note that this period marked the establishment of a dangerous behavioral pattern, one in which physical boundaries were gradually pushed further and further. What may have started as experimentation appeared to evolve into something far more troubling. With a fortune exceeding $15 million, more than $18 million US, Broadhurst created a world for Natalie that was both luxurious and isolating. Her former life, structured work days, professional responsibilities, and a steady routine, faded into the background. By mid-December 2016, her world had narrowed to the walls of the Kenrose Mill estate and a social circle that shared the couple's appetite for excess. As alcohol consumption increased, so did tension within the relationship. Yet in public, they continued to present themselves as the image of success, a powerful businessman and his glamorous partner. Saturday, December 17, 2016 would be the last day Natalie Connelly was seen alive in a public setting. The day began at a Premier League soccer match between West Bromwich Albion and Manchester United at the Hawthorn Stadium. John Broadhurst and Natalie arrived with friends and took their seats in a VIP box where service included a steady flow of alcoholic beverages. Witnesses who were present in the same area later described the couple's behavior as completely ordinary. Natalie appeared relaxed. They showed affection toward each other. There were no visible arguments, no signs of conflict. After the final whistle around 6:00 p.m., the group headed to an Indian restaurant called Mogul Palace in the nearby town of Amblecott. The celebration continued for several hours. Security footage and staff testimony would later confirm that both Natalie and John continued drinking throughout the evening. By that point, their level of intoxication was significant. Still, they were able to walk, talk, and engage in conversation. As dinner came to an end, Broadhurst contacted his personal driver to transport the group home. Around midnight, the vehicle pulled up to the gates of the estate in Kinver. The driver dropped the couple off and waited long enough to see them safely enter the house. According to his later statement, there were no visible signs of tension or aggression between Natalie and John at the moment. It was the last time anyone outside those walls would see Natalie alive. Once the gates closed and the driver left, the couple remained alone inside the 5-bedroom home, completely isolated. For investigators, that window of time became the critical starting point. The entire previous day had been documented almost minute by minute, from the VIP box at the stadium to the table at the Curry House. Their public movements resembled nothing more than a typical Saturday for affluent adults. No witnesses reported threats. No one observed warning signs of escalating aggression. But behind the doors of Kenrose Mill, the celebratory atmosphere reportedly shifted into uncontrolled consumption of alcohol and prohibited substances that continued deep into the night. From midnight until the early hours of December 18, the estate remained sealed off from the outside world. The only person who could account for what happened inside was John Broadhurst. After entering the house, activity appeared to center around the kitchen area and the main hallway. Forensic teams later documented not only evidence of prohibited substance use, but also signs of extensive cleaning. Cleaning products were found on kitchen surfaces. In a bathroom, investigators located damp towels bearing traces of biological material. A technical examination of the hallway exposed a crucial contradiction, one that would later form the backbone of the prosecution's case. Broadhurst told investigators he had been severely intoxicated and physically incapable of lifting Natalie or carrying her upstairs. Yet the condition of the scene suggested otherwise. On the light-colored carpet and along the wooden staircase components, forensic specialists detected evidence that blood had been wiped away. Detectives determined that someone had deliberately used household cleaning agents to remove visible traces of a physical confrontation. Those actions required coordination, focus, and purposeful effort, directly contradicting Broadhurst's claim that he was too impaired to act rationally that night. Biological indicators suggested that Natalie Connelly stopped showing signs of life at approximately 4 a.m. She was positioned near the bottom of the staircase. A full examination of the property revealed no signs of forced entry and no evidence that a third party had been present. Everything that unfolded inside Kenrose Mill involved only two people. 4 investigators. One fact carried particular weight. Instead of contacting medical professionals immediately, Broadhurst appeared to spend valuable time cleaning the scene. By around 5 a.m., the lights inside the house were turned off. Natalie remained in the hallway. Broadhurst went upstairs to the second floor, leaving behind a space that appeared outwardly tidy, yet had already become a deadly environment for Natalie. John Broadhurst's actions during those final hours became the central focus of the investigation. With financial resources, social influence, and a phone within reach, the millionaire made a conscious decision. In his statement, he claimed he did not call for medical assistance because he was too intoxicated to grasp the seriousness of the situation. He also stated that he had tried to lift Natalie, but couldn't manage her weight. Investigators ultimately found those explanations unconvincing. Prosecutors built their case around the legal concept known as duty of care. As Natalie's partner and the head of the household, John Broadhurst had a clear legal responsibility to ensure her safety, especially at a moment when she was incapable of helping herself. Investigators determined that Broadhurst saw the extent of her injuries. The trauma to her face and visible signs consistent with internal bleeding were apparent. Yet, instead of seeking immediate medical assistance, he chose to go to bed fully aware that she remained on the cold floor in critical condition. Forensic experts emphasized a crucial point. Had a call been placed to the rescue service at 2 o'clock or even 3 o'clock a.m., Natalie Connelly would have had a strong chance of survival. Modern emergency medicine is capable of stabilizing internal hemorrhaging of that nature, but only with timely intervention. Broadhurst denied her that opportunity by leaving her alone for nearly 5 hours. Prosecutors argued he shifted from being a witness to an accident to being legally responsible for her death through gross negligence. During questioning, Broadhurst attempted to redirect responsibility onto Natalie, claiming that everything that occurred was part of mutually shared interests. But the physical evidence told a different story. The more than 40 documented injuries and the deliberate effort to clean away blood indicated an awareness of the seriousness of the situation. His wealth and social standing did not exempt him from accountability. The foundation of the case was not merely the physical altercation itself. It was the conscious decision to withhold life-saving assistance from someone who was dying under his roof. Just after midnight, the couple entered the estate. In the hallway, forensic specialists later found traces of cocaine, classified as a prohibited substance, along with empty liquor bottles. Between 1 a.m. and 4 o'clock a.m., events escalated into a phase of clear aggression. Natalie sustained a series of blows that led to ruptured internal organs. She collapsed near the staircase in a state of severe intoxication, unable to protect herself. Instead of calling medical professionals, Broadhurst began cleaning blood from the hallway floor and staircase. By approximately 5 a.m., the cleanup was complete. He turned off the lights and went upstairs to his bedroom. Natalie remained on the floor in the dark. Over the next several hours, she slowly succumbed to blood loss while the homeowner slept. The call to the rescue service was not placed until 9:25 a.m., by which time her body had already grown cold. That decision to eliminate evidence rather than seek immediate help became the cornerstone of the prosecution's argument. In 2018, John Broadhurst's case went before the Birmingham Crown Court. Initially, prosecutors charged him with a serious criminal offense resulting in death. Inside the courtroom, jurors were shown photographs documenting all 40 of Natalie Connelly's injuries. The prosecution maintained that Broadhurst, with unlimited resources and immediate access to communication, knowingly ignored his partner's critical condition. They argued that the millionaire saw Natalie lying bloodied at the foot of the stairs and chose sleep over action, a choice that ultimately sealed her fate. Broadhurst's defense team built its strategy around one central claim that Natalie had consented to all physical activity that took place that night. Attorneys relied on a controversial argument often referred to as the rough intimacy defense. They contended that her injuries were the result of a tragic accident during consensual intimacy, influenced by alcohol and prohibited substances. Throughout the proceedings, Broadhurst sat in the dock, composed and controlled. Midway through the trial, a major legal shift occurred. Broadhurst entered a guilty plea to manslaughter by gross negligence. He acknowledged that his inaction, specifically his failure to contact medical professionals directly, contributed to Natalie's death. When delivering the sentence, the judge described Broadhurst's conduct as a monstrous disregard for human life. The court emphasized that as her partner, he had a clear duty to act to preserve her life. In December 2018, John Broadhurst was sentenced to 3 years and 8 months in prison. The reaction inside the courtroom was immediate. For many present, the sentence for a death that followed clear aggression and abandonment in a life-threatening situation felt strikingly lenient. The court took into account his guilty plea and the absence of proven intent to commit a deliberate crime resulting in death. Those factors allowed Broadhurst to avoid the life sentence prosecutors had initially sought. Natalie's family described the 3-year sentence as a second betrayal. Her sister told the court that Natalie's daughter was left without her mother because a man chose sleep over saving a life. The case triggered significant legal reform in the United Kingdom. The use of the so-called rough intimacy consent argument in court was formally prohibited in cases involving serious injury or death. John Broadhurst was released on parole in late 2020 after serving just 22 months behind bars. The Kenrose Mill estate eventually took on new tenants. Natalie Connelly's name became associated with legal reform efforts, a symbol in the push to change laws surrounding domestic aggression and accountability. For her family, however, the outcome has never felt just. Natalie is gone, and the man whose decision not to make a single call proved fatal returned to his life in Staffordshire after spending less than 2 years in prison.